in living color.
Good morning and welcome to the October 11th press conference here at the City of Pensacola. For those of you who can only see us online, you probably don't get a chance to see how many people we have. This is by far the most people we've had at a press conference in a long time. It's great to have a number of students here. Today is the day we're celebrating the second annual Indigenous Peoples Day. Certainly they're here for a part of that. We had a little ceremony outside. We have the flags raised of the 5 tribes of the Southeast that were recognized. So we have their flags. We had a little chance to do a ceremony. We certainly are very proud of our history in the City of Pensacola. It is rich and it is deep, and we certainly have a significant amount of colonial roots. However, history didn't start with colonization of the United States and the Americas. It was here long before. There were a number of people that settled right here where we are at City Hall, and were here for centuries. In fact, probably millennia before we had colonization. We certainly are here today to recognize a part of that in the history that they brought. But that history is not just stuck back 400 or 500 years ago. That history continues to live today with individuals who you're going to meet who are making a difference in this community and making this community better every day. I want to start by recognizing one of those individuals who is leading this community as the representative for the state of Florida, our District 1 state representative, but also, more importantly, seeing Jeremy back there, she is the best of the coast, best elected official. That is Michelle Salzman. Michelle, if you would come forward, just kind of tell us a little bit about your own personal story and certainly what this day means to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I always tell him he's my favorite mayor, and I think that title will hold true for many years to come. I appreciate also all of the people that came out today to at least witness and listen and learn and celebrate with us. It's important to know that Columbus Day is a critical part of history, but like the mayor said, there's so much more than just him and his history and the history that he brought to America. It has to do with unity and working together and all of the things that happened from our tribes here that helped them create and colonize and bring us where we are today. I'm certainly grateful for my chief, Chief Dan, who will be speaking in just a moment. He is a guiding light for our tribe here, and it's for the Santa Rosa Creek tribe, and certainly a guiding light now for the state of Florida as I use him to lean on in the resolutions and the laws and things that we pass in the state of Florida. So I'm grateful for him and for his mentorship and his guidance, and his wife is here today and some members of the council, and I'm so appreciative of you guys for looking after us and doing good stuff. But today is a day that we can learn and celebrate together. Pensacola has a very rich history, and it's such an incredible place to be. I would not want to be anywhere else in the world except here, but we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the diversity of the creation of this community and the continued partnerships in this community. So I appreciate the partnership. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I certainly appreciate all the work that you're doing for Northwest Florida. You've gotten that title, best elected official. You've earned it, and certainly we appreciate what you do for us in Tallahassee. Thank you very much. I next want to introduce a gentleman who's been very instrumental in working with us in making this day happen, in coming to us and talking about some of the history that we had before. I also want to thank him very much for sharing some of the sacred ashes from the fire of his tribe that are here with a number of cultural assets that we have here at the City of Pensacola. We certainly treasure and prize those ashes, and we're certainly glad to have the Santa Rosa Creek tribe as a part of it. I would like to introduce Chief Dan Skyhorse here to talk to us and address us today about the importance of Indigenous Peoples Day. Chief Skyhorse, please come forward.
Okay, you guys already know what to do. Hische es tongo.
Inca.
Thank you. I said, hello, how are you? And everyone said, good. Chotlaka sutamiko. No? Chotlaka suta miko. Chief Skyhorse. I am a Muskogee man. Muskogee, Hononwa. We are humbled and honored to be here today to be a part of this recognition of Indigenous peoples. Our people have something similar that we do. We recognize and honor the heritage, culture, and accomplishments of Native Americans each year. That begins on January the 1st and ends on December the 31st. And we do that each year. Some of you will get that later. First of all, who are Indigenous people? Since the European incursion, we have been called by many names. Indian is the name supposedly that was used by Columbus because he thought he had reached India. One little problem with that. Up until the 17th century, India was called Hindustan. Another explanation was that the Spanish priest called us Niños Indios, which is children of God. The name Red Man came from a description used by Indigenous people because of their belief in the universal connectedness of all people. Regardless of skin pigment, we are all the same inside. The life force that flows through us, through our veins, is red. Istichatinita, red man. We are all red people. You've heard the name American Indian. That was a name that was created by the federal government when they were writing laws to govern how Indians would be treated. And so they came up with that name American Indian. That was just a government-created name to be used on law books. Native American, that term emerged from people trying to be politically correct. I don't know how that came to be, what they were thinking that they were doing with that, but that's where that came from. That's not something that the Indigenous people have ever called themselves before that term being created. Before the European incursion, we simply called ourselves people. We were people of the mountains, people of the rivers, people of the plains, but we were just people. Now, where are these Indigenous people now? Well, one of them might be right next to you, or it might be you. One reason that most people do not realize who we are is because of the stereotype that has been indelibly etched in the minds of people by Hollywood. We are not monosyllabic speaking men, nor women portrayed as being sexually available to white men. The stereotyping has frozen the image of the Native American in a 200-year-old time warp. We are not there anymore. You may not know, but there are prominent families in Pensacola that are Indigenous people. Some of those are the Hopkins family, the Browns, the Emanuels, the Devereaux, the Baracos, all prominent Pensacola families that have been here since the beginning of Pensacola. And they are thriving in Pensacola and integral part of Pensacola. Here with us today, John Ellis, a Pensacola businessman. Muskogee Hunanwa, a Muskogee man. Tracy Gibbs, a Pensacola businesswoman. Muskogee Hokti, a Muskogee woman. And of course, Michelle Salzman, Muskogee Hokti, a Muskogee woman. Our ancestors were on these shores watching as the first sails appeared on the horizon. And we are still here. We are watching. Bon Morgan Hiados. We are still here. Meadow.
Chief, thank you so much for being here, and I think that is important that we recognize that our native, that our Indian ancestors are still here as a part of this community still today. So we thank you for being here. I did at least want to thank Sean for bringing the class here today, also for bringing us the flags, and so we certainly appreciate that. They will continue to fly out here. Thank you for coming here and be a part of it. For the press, if you have any questions for anybody dealing with Indigenous Peoples Day, we're happy to answer any questions. I know other than that, they may be leaving and we may get a much smaller room here quickly after this, but I did at least want to open it up.
I have a question.
Andrew, yes.
Dan, is there a collective identity among Indigenous peoples that think of yourselves as a group, or do you think of yourself as all these separate groups?
There is no. Yeah, sorry.
No, you're good.
The indigenous people are diverse. The United States, America, has the identity of being called a melting pot. Well, there was a melting pot long before colonialization of this country. And that melting pot has people who came from all parts of the world. If you look at the Cherokee, there is a genetic marker in Cherokees that is only found elsewhere in Hasidic Jews. There are markers, genetic markers in the indigenous people in southeastern United States that come from the savanna plains of Africa. There was a emperor of Mali about 300 years ago or so, took 200 ships and sailed from Mali in Africa on the New Guinea Current and came to Brazil. And of those 200 ships filled with men and supplies, only 2 of those ships ever returned to Africa. The rest of them dispersed into South America and then moved up into North America. I myself, in a DNA test, showed that I have savanna plains of Africa markers in my DNA. So it would be like trying to say that the entire world is one thing or another, because there's so many different cultures that came from different places, and they have been in different areas, so they have not been able to communicate with each other. And I will tell you, had there been more of a concerted group or effort, the Native Americans wouldn't have endured the treatment that they have endured. But because there were smaller groups, they were more easily prey to the colonization that took place.
Indigenous Peoples Days, that effort has been going on quite a while, and it seems like it's just now in the past few years getting real traction. Even though you say Native Americans don't see themselves as this monolithic group, in your mind, what's the value of an Indigenous Peoples Day that does kind of lump everything together?
Well, the Indigenous Peoples Day first started in the 1970s in Berkeley, California. And I will speak for myself because I can't speak for all indigenous people, but I will speak for myself that it was done as a counter to Columbus Day. and the things that Columbus did that were some not very nice. And so that's where Indigenous Peoples Day came as a counter to that. And I have been asked many times if I would like for us to erase and do away with Columbus Day. My answer is a resounding no, because I am guaranteed one day a year that I can come and tell the story of what has happened to our people.
Jeremy, I'd be happy to answer, at least from the perspective of the city of Pensacola. I think the bigger reason we see the value of this day is to tell a history that goes on beyond just the history we've told, colonialization. We certainly think that is important, some things that make Pensacola unique. But Pensacola has history beyond that, and we have a responsibility to tell that story. So for us, it's telling that story. Two, I think it was a case of what Chief Skyhorse said in his remarks is, I think too often, too long, we picture Indian as something only 200 years ago. I think it's very important to know that individuals who are descendants of our Creek Indians that were here in Northwest Florida are still here today. They are valuable members of our community that have jobs and lead our community. So I think that's the importance of what the city of Pensacola sees in this day is twofold in what we hope to accomplish. But again, I don't think we've ever, we still recognize Columbus Day on the day. We don't think it's not one thing or the other. We think it's important that there's an Indigenous Peoples Day, and that's what we recognize today. So again, I think that's the importance of what we do here at the city of Pensacola. I'm not saying we do everything perfect. This is the way we chose to do it. We very much appreciate the opportunity to celebrate it with many of our citizens who have Native American Indian blood. So we certainly appreciate the opportunity to be here. My wife is part Cherokee. My children are part Cherokee. So certainly in my own family, there's that. So I think it's the importance of realizing there was history long before there was colonialization, and we need to celebrate that and the contributions that those individuals continue to make for us. I mean, after all, your paper recognized one of our Native American sisters here as a best elected official. So I think that's also important to show the importance that they're still making in this community. I thank you very much for this part. Before you leave, real quick, I was asked just from our city staff, since we have so many individuals here today that might not ever get to see or experience time with the city, if you have some questions, I did at least want to recognize a couple of members of our staff. In the back is Lawrence Powell, who is our neighborhoods chair in many of the areas. If you work with neighborhoods, Lawrence Powell, certainly appreciate Lawrence being here. I was also going to say we have our city administrator who has just started, Kareth Fiddler, and we also have our deputy city administrator in charge of our enterprise areas, Amy Miller. So appreciate all of them.
That's my Amy.
And we have, well, we also at City Hall, which is Robert Greer in the back. And then we have a hang-on employee who's here for about another couple of months before he leaves us totally, our former city administrator, Keith Wilkins, in the back, but he's back with everybody else and be a regular citizen, so we very much appreciate his work. Sean, thank you very much for having them here. We will take a short break to recess and let you, if you wanted to exit out, absolutely, and then we'll go with the rest of the press conference. All right. Well, good morning back to those of you who've joined us back again. We're sorry. If you were with John, you stayed live the whole time, but we have now emptied out. Our first part of today was really recognizing Indigenous Peoples Day. But we'll head into the rest of the things that are going on here. ECUA recycling update. Let me go grab my water. The repairs of the ECUA material recycling facility have been completed, which is Monday, October 11th. Transportation of recyclable materials from Pensacola City sanitation customers to ECUA recycling facility will resume today. So as I told y'all last week, to start getting back to putting only recyclables in that brown can, because today we are picking it up. This whole week we'll be picking it up, and it'll only be recyclables. We're back open. We're very happy to hear that. Being good stewards here, we're happy to see that back up. Due to the damage from the fire facility in July, the city recycling sanitation customers have temporarily been on hold while these repairs have been made. The City of Pensacola thanks the public for their patience during this time and appreciates your diligence in recycling, and we hope you will get back to that. We are sorry that we had the outage for a little while. Also want to say how much I appreciate certainly ECUA working rapidly to get that back up and working. So we certainly are with them and appreciate their work. City of Pensacola is continuing also to work diligently on its own with FEMA to acquire the necessary approvals and funding in order to make the remaining repairs. The public's patience is appreciated as we work through the FEMA process required to move forward. All remaining FEMA-funded projects related to Hurricane Sally damage in the City of Pensacola are expected to be completed by spring of 2020, with the exception of Wayside Park, which will still be under construction, both with the bridge and other repairs. Spring 2022, did I say?
That's 2020.
I'm bad. Sorry, 2022. That's why Casey keeps watch over me. So make sure we got 2022 in there this next spring. I will say one of the things that was great to see was certainly appreciate Sertoma in the dragon boat competitions. If any of you had a chance to get out there this weekend, it was an incredible weekend to be out there. Glad to see everybody on Bayou Tahar. Most of it had gotten done. We still had with the rain and some other supply issues. We hope to have the last of the big dock works out there repaired and completed here very shortly. We had hoped to have everything done by the end of by the time we had the dragon boat races, but we were able to get up at least so that they could function, and we're able to do that. So we're very excited about that, and I think that was one of the good things as well. Sanders Beach is currently under construction, so it will probably come out next. We're just about to be bringing something forward to council for both getting repairs started on Maritime and Plaza de Luna. So we will continue to work through all of those and keep moving forward. Just want to remind you that we have a town hall scheduled for next Tuesday, October 19th at 5:30 at Woodland Heights Resource Center at 111 Berkeley Drive. All members of the community are encouraged to attend and provide their input. The final 2021 Mayor's Neighborhood Cleanup is set for October 30th. The final neighborhood cleanup will be on Saturday, October 30th, in a portion of Scenic Heights neighborhood in the east side of Spanish Trail area. Neighborhood cleanups allow the City of Pensacola sanitation customers in the cleanup area to leave eligible items on the curb for pickup free of charge. Please visit cityofpensacola.com to check the cleanup map and confirm whether you are in this month's area. Again, our COVID numbers, we're continuing to see that de-escalate. Escambia County has a positivity rate of 7.8% for the week. So again, that last week we were at 11.9, and really the number we'd love to get to is 5 or under 5. So we're really almost there, seeing that we've come from in the midst of this this latest spike with Delta. We were over 30%, and we are now trending down to about a 7.8% positivity. We're also seeing the decline also correspond with hospitalizations. From Friday, they went to 88, over Saturday, 84. Sunday was 90, but Monday's back at 83. So we are quickly continuing to move down on those hospitalizations, and we expect that number to continue to drop probably around the 50 area, under the 50 area. That's sort of where we bounced around for about 4 months before we got Delta. So again, these are some of the things that are happening, that are going on. We still have the monoclonal site open. I know I received some comments from people when I was at Bayview Park about when that was going to be changing. We will be on the phone call today with the hospitals and with the county. I will say the good thing, most of it is not necessarily, today's call will not be focused on what's happening right now. It's really to plan what happens so that we're better prepared and can move forward. As I've said before, we've learned a lot about COVID over this time period, and I think we have a better response and we know what we're doing. Like I said, now we're actually, much like we do with hurricanes, the meetings we're going to be having, we're having one a month during this fall period through the winter, and we'll continue to talk and plan for what happens if we go forward. I expect that monoclonal site to probably wind down and leave very shortly. But we would love to see it if numbers trend back up to make sure that we could reopen it. I know there's been a significant amount of discussion because of some of the challenges in finding the Bayview Community Center. We will look for a better place, but at this particular time, when we had it coming open, we really had no other sites, and it was instrumental, I think, in helping drive down the numbers. When we first started this, we saw nearly 200 people a day going there, and it was really able to free up some spaces in the various hospitals. So again, I think this is just another example of ways that we have all learned, hospital, state, local government, to work through COVID, and we're getting better every time we have something. So the good news is I don't see anything happening at this particular time, but the bad news is also in some ways, as I've said for a long time, we're not ever necessarily going to be over COVID. We're just going to be dealing with it as it comes forward. I think the better prepared we are, things like dealing with vaccinations, keeping those rates up, continuing to be prepared and to know what we need to do if we see another spike come forward. These are all things that are going to be important in understanding how to deal with the virus and the pandemic, and I think we're doing a much better job on that avenue. Last conversation with council, and we've made the recommendation for rejection of the proposal that came forward. I hope you had a chance to take a look at it. We provided all of you a copy of it so that you could see it, discuss it with your readers, discuss it with your viewers, discuss it with your listeners. Again, we thought it's a case where it looks for us to put significant amount of public investment into Maritime Park with really no source of revenue, no rent revenue, no tax revenue. At this point, not that that wasn't very interesting, but at this point we don't see how we would fund it. So at this point we will be asking council to reject, and we'll be discussing that probably Thursday night. There were some other items that are on the agenda, but I think that will probably have the most discussion about that. So again, that's where we are today on what's going forward. We'll continue to plan, but I'm here to answer your questions. So if you have any questions, happy to answer. I know, John, you talked to me about a question you had.
Mayor, what's your reaction to Councilmember Brayer's add-on item this afternoon that would hold off renewing Gulf Power's franchise agreement pending a feasibility study of alternate methods of delivering power service to the community?
Well, and again, I was aware that there was some type of an add-on that was being talked about, the city looking at it actually taking back municipal electrical services, and that certainly is something if the city wants to look at. I think it's a fairly significant, and while certainly there are cities that have been successful and do it, it will be a fairly significant change in the community. I think a change of that nature is not an item necessarily that comes on as an add-on. We have not brought forward, we have been working on the franchise agreement. We've had challenges with the franchise agreement. If the franchise agreement came forward and the council decided they wanted to go a different direction, I'd be fine with that. But I think right now to take a step out from an add-on item just would sort of be, I mean, if you're gonna do this, you need to be prepared in what you're doing. And if the discussion was wait till the franchise agreement come and have this discussion, I have no problem. But I think discussing something like that as an add-on, I think, is not necessarily the best way to do it. I mean, I think you probably need some time to discuss that because there's a lot of ins and outs. There are certainly cities that have been successful. I'm not saying you can't be successful in doing that, but I think you really need staff's involvement in looking and evaluation. I think add-on is a crazy thing to kind of put it at this point when we hadn't necessarily looked at it. We haven't brought forward at this point the franchise agreement. If somebody wants to have a different discussion, if the franchise agreement comes forward when they could see what it looks like, those are all fine and able to be done. I think placing something like this as an add-on item is there hasn't been significant amount of discussion on it, and I just don't think it's proper for an add-on. There's plenty of time for us to have this discussion as a community, and I think it's something that needs to be done over time and deliberately if that's what you're going to do. But I think we will. Our hope was to be bringing the franchise agreement forward shortly. It has not been the easiest process to negotiate through, but I do think we were making some headway and getting close to bringing that forward to council. But that's one that council will have to look at, and if they have other things they want to do, they could look at it. I don't know that, John, I don't think this is an add-on item. Something that is significant is actually starting up an electric company. That would be a fairly serious endeavor for the city.
I understand, or I was told by Councilman Breyer, that the existing franchise agreement expired 12 years ago.
Correct.
And there's been a series of pushing the ball forward. What have been the challenges in getting a franchise agreement?
Well, we started it in the beginning. We've made some headway. I think part of the challenges that have been here through that process, I can't speak to before I got here. I think once I got here, we started working with Gulf, but very quickly after I was here, Gulf became no longer was part of Southern Company, was part of Florida Power and Light. So there have been some things going. Florida Power and Light has not been happy with the fact that nobody in Northwest Florida had franchise agreements. So it has not been because they didn't want franchise agreements. They agreed that the way things had been done before seemed a little unlikely what they would have done. But it takes two partners. It is an agreement. You have to have a partner on one side who wants to have it, and on the other side as well. We've said we want to do it. There are things we would like to see addressed in there. There are items from everything into what we get paid for our right-of-way down to how do we look at things going forward, looking at new and different ways of doing power generation. It's hard to say. I don't think the city's gotten everything we've wanted at it, but I didn't expect us necessarily to. I don't think Gulf Power, Florida Power and Light's gotten everything they wanted. That's kind of the point of the negotiation. I do think that one of the things we've seen from Florida Power and Light is we've seen a push to put in more alternative energies. They got out of the coal. They're totally out of the coal since they've come in from Southern. They've put in several solar fields, one of which is at Salfley Field. They've initiated a number of things that we've talked about with them. So we certainly think that's a part of it. The other big part of it that we want to see is continued undergrounding utilities, hardening, making us more resilient to storms, because in Florida it's not just a question of if we're going to have another storm, it's a question of when we're going to have another storm. The city, we've been working with them on some undergrounding inside downtown. We'd love to see more of that. So these are things we've been discussing with them. I would say for a while, it took us a while to kind of get started and get everything with the right players. We have been talking with this about a year. It was my hope. I thought we were close to a franchise agreement probably 4 or 5 months ago, but that sort of then went sideways, and I think the group that's been doing it, Keith was involved with that. I think they were getting close to pulling back up an agreement that we were going to be able to bring back to council. So again, if that particular time council wants to look and deal with something else, that's council's prerogative. But I think we need to do that. If we ever make decisions, we need to make decisions with eyes wide open. Which I'm not saying it's impossible to do power generation, but it's not as easy as simply saying, "Oh, this is going to be great." And I think the city really needs a plan going forward. I do not believe in any way that this city can take on significant public investment in Maritime Park and at the same time decide it wants to run power generation. There's just all the money can't be flowing out for every single thing we want to do. And so I think my position both to the citizens and to the council, but really to the citizens, is we need to figure this thing out. What do we want to do? And I think from that standpoint, just waking up every day and saying, well, we want to do this, we want to do that, it's too much for us to handle as a group and figure out what we need to do. We need a plan to say these are the public services and investments we want to make and begin to do that. We certainly were trying to do that with the franchise agreement. I think we were making considerable discussions with them about renewable energy and with hardening the resiliency of our lines. Did we get as much as we wanted out of it? I don't know. I mean, I would have always loved more, but I'm sure Gulf Power wanted more. So it's always part of a negotiation. But, you know, I think we're getting close to at least bringing something. And I think that's probably the better time for us to have this discussion than an add-on item at a council agenda. I think that was probably you know, there's plenty of time for us to have this discussion. But I think the other thing is if the council is going to have these kind of discussions, they need to start figuring out, okay, what are the real priorities? Because we can't be spending all of our money on public sector improvements at Maritime Park and at the same time realizing we got to make these investments to deal with our power generation at the same time. So I think we need to realize what we have capacity to do and then figure out those things that we want to do and go do them. This is one of the biggest fears I've had about the proposal for Maritime Park. You know, the original proposal, and I think the proposal we've looked everywhere else, is it's other people's money that's helping provide assets for the community to use. I like that idea a whole lot better than us using our money, and so you know that's why we have put forward a recommendation for rejection. So we'll see what happens then on Wednesday or Thursday, and we can go from there. I don't know what the council's going to do today. I have no idea. It just seems like a really big topic to take as an add-on. And hopefully the franchise will be coming together. And if the council wants to adjust it and talk about it and take it up when the franchise agreement, that's a much better time to deliberation. I've talked at length with John Daly at Tallahassee about their working it. I'm not saying it cannot be done, but you've got to have a better plan and understanding what you want to do. You can't go spend all your money on one project and then turn around and say you want to go do another project. We got to figure out what is the one thing we don't want to do because we only have so much scarce resources, and I think that's you know what we need to be doing. So those are my thoughts. Andrew, you got a question?
Yeah. To what degree is the city obligated to supply parking for Wahoo's games? That's a question that's kind of come up. I don't know.
What are we like 125 spaces or anyways? Yeah, it wasn't that many. It wasn't 300. But the idea is like 150, 200 spaces or something. But the number mirrors responsibility to do for the One Maritime Plaza. So in essence, those spaces kind of work together. They don't go on top of each other. The people who come for Wahoo's games aren't here when the people are here for Maritime One. And so the idea is, again, those work. I mean, the idea is how do you don't build a garage for every single potential what could happen. The best example, I think, and when we were looking at this, we've talked about you don't build a garage for Sunday Easter. You know, I mean, not every church service is Sunday Easter, so you don't build the garage for that because otherwise you've built way too much parking that you'll never use and you spend a lot of money on that. At the same time,
I guess what I'm thinking is if we built just a big block of buildings on 4 and 5 and didn't have any parking, would we be in violation of our agreement with the Wahoos in any way?
Oh yeah, yes we would. We have to provide the stuff for the Wahoos and for Maritime One. We have an agreement for Maritime One as well, and I don't have the number sitting in front of me. It's about 150. They mirror each other. It's the same number for Maritime Park is the same number for Maritime One, and the whole idea was they kind of mirror each other. When Maritime One needs it, Maritime Park, which is the Wahoo Stadium, doesn't need it, and vice versa. So those spaces, which would create a problem if we had no parking space for them, we do have an obligation to those groups.
So if that's a city obligation to the Wahoos in Parcel 1, why is the cost of covering those parking spaces being given to the developers instead of the city? Because I know you talk a lot about the cost of the parking garage, and the proposal now on the table is public cost. but it seems like we encumbered ourselves to that obligation with the deals we made with Wahoo.
Well, again, the proposal that's in front of you has no obligation to the developer. All of it's on the
That's
city.
what I'm saying. That's been your argument against that proposal.
All right. The other one, there were two issues. If you remember, it was going to cost us about 18, probably more than 18 million to put in the one that we did with Silver Hills. We had $10 million coming from the ability to advance lease payments from Silver Hills, but Silver Hills also had their own parking use that they needed, which was going to be about 7 million. So again, they were going to need 300 parking spaces. So if we had 10 million in there, which was for our portion on the 150 that we would have, plus we would have, that gives us, looking at, we would have probably another 400 or so spaces that would be open, that would be available for either other users in the whole Maritime Park plan, or for other public parking. And the best part of it is when the rest of the people came in, we didn't have to give them anything for it. They could pay for the parking one way or another, and that's what we were doing. The deal we had with, or what was originally been proposed with, the hotel, Valencia, yes, Valencia. The whole idea that was proposed with Valencia was they would purchase a portion of them, but then the other ones they would purchase through fees that they would be paying to the city. So one way or another, the city's going to make revenue from that parking asset going forward. Certainly it could do the same thing under the other scenario. If the group that's currently looking to builds it, you could sell parking to the other developers on the rest of it. But at the end of the day, parking is going to be one of those assets that's needed. I'd rather find a way to figure out how to do as much of the parking without us putting additional public money into it and having it totally built out.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at is it seems like really it's a cost of doing Wahoo's business. And
Well, that's only a 150. You're going to have more than that. Again, just going back to Silver Hills. Silver Hills is going to need a little over like 350 parking spaces. For their 350, it was going to cost $7 million. So if we only have 150, and we were getting basically 10 million, we're probably looking at, looking at the number, it was considerably less than probably about less than $3 million for those 150 spaces. So in other words, you're getting another $7 million worth of parking without having, it's not encumbered one way or the other. I mean, you're going to have to get the parking one way or the other. The asset's got to be there for the development. I think, as we said last week, the one thing we absolutely do agree with the current proposal is we need a parking garage. The one thing we don't disagree with the current proposal is it would be nice to either have the rent from the property, if the rent's all paid in advance, or other things paying for that, helping us pay for that. We have an obligation one way or the other. There's already a concrete lot out there. We could decide to do nothing and just leave the concrete lot there for the Wahoos and develop the rest of the parcels. The problem is if you develop the rest of the parcels, then you got to figure out where that goes. So again, we got into an overall development. At no time from 2006, when this was originally done, it has always been anticipated that we would have a parking structure down there. It would be structured parking that would do this. Now, agree totally in some of the ways, things and stuff that Greg Darden said. Greg said, why should you build it all up front when you don't have to? Well, we didn't. We just put a lot out there, and we've been waiting for the rest of it. But for us to unlock the potential that sits on all those rest of those spaces, we need structured parking. It's the only thing that makes sense there. So, I agree. We fully agree. We said that last week. We agree that we all need structured parking. That's a good thing. But the bad thing is the way it's paid for. And this one, it's all on us as the public to pay for that parking. Answer your questions?
Somewhat. I'm not sure about all the numbers, but I understand what you're trying to say.
All right. Well, I certainly appreciate it. We look forward to this week. Got a lot of things to discuss. Appreciate you being here. Hopefully you go out and enjoy your second annual Indigenous Peoples Day, and remember the importance that our Native Americans certainly have made to this community and our history, and they continue to make every day. And certainly appreciate Representative Salzman being here with me, Chief Dan Skyhorse being here with me, and hope you have a good day.